Just a Dust Shop by Nyan Sangetsu, Chapter 8, Bloodlines. Any man can be a father, but it takes someone special to be a dad. Yang Bloodlines. Yang considered herself a free-spirited girl. Live fast, die hard, that sort of thing, you know. No point in worrying about rules. Don't sweat about the small stuff. If you have a problem, punch it. Such philosophy had served her well so far in life, and why wouldn't it? She hadn't met an obstacle that she couldn't punch her way through yet. 9 times out of 10, Ember Silica and her siblings carried the day, and she was content with that. What would be would, well, be. Was it reckless? Definitely. Summer had told her off for it more than once, but it was the only way Yang knew how to live. Summer wasn't really her mother, not by blood. She'd taken her in after that bitch, Raven, threw her away without so much as goodbye. Yang was grateful for that, really she was. Summer was a super mom, best gosh darn mom a girl could ask for, but sometimes she wondered, who was her father? Dad hadn't been in the picture long. She didn't even know who he was. Mom said it might be someone named Ty, and hey, maybe it was, but she didn't know. She didn't have any memories of him either, because Ty was dead too. He'd gone off on a mission and never returned. She vaguely recalled a smiling man with blonde hair, blue eyes patting her head. Even now, his face was fuzzy to her. She tried not to dwell on it. No point in crying over spilled milk. Riven was the one she had a problem with, not a deceased dad. So yeah, free spirit and all that, but this was a little too cavalier even for her. Didn't mean she wouldn't laugh at it though. Wait. She hid a snicker behind her hand and raised the other. Let me get this straight, old man. Madam. Fuzzy bitches here, she pointed at Weiss, is your kid. And a hand fell to Myrtanaster. Xiaolong, you do realize I am armed? Whatever you say, Weiss Cream. A smile touched her lips. Seriously, though. Her gaze sought out the adults. Summer looked chagrined about all this, yet resigned, while Weiss's mom, what was her name again? Willow, seemed insufferably smug as she sprawled in a nearby chair. Naruto appeared to be caught somewhere in between the two, which suggested he'd known this for a while. Evidently, Weiss didn't. Hold out your hand if you don't believe me. He offered her his palm. Your chakra should confirm it, or would you prefer a DNA test? Weiss eyed him as one might a snake in the grass. What in blazes is this chakra you speak of? And I refuse to hold your... Willow clicked her tongue in mild disapproval. Weiss! All right. At her mother's command, the younger Shini flinched and started forward. Fine, let's be done with this farce. Hey! Here, her hand smacked into Naruto's palm with an elbow pop. See, she huffed when nothing happened. This is pointless. I feel fine. Now let's be done with this prank. Her words trailed off, eyes bulging as a thin line of frost crept up her fingers. Not enough to harm them, but enough to coat the 5 digits all the same. From this distance, they almost looked like claws. As if something had siphoned the moisture out of the air, froze it, and bounded over her hand. Blake balked. Ruby cooed and crept closer to get a better look. Yang gave a low whistle. Myrtanaster was still sheathed. She hadn't used just now, or summoned one of her glyphs at that. Weiss must have realized it too, because she went absolutely berserk. What is this? Make it stop. That, Naruto hummed, would be a bloodline. He took his hand from her and thumbed to his chin. And a familiar one at that. I didn't think I'd seen it again. Haku would be proud. Excuse you? Weiss tried to shout, tried to refute him. All that emerged was a squeak through chattering teeth and a plume of steam as the temperature in the room continued to plummet. Who is Haku, and how do I stop this? Blake hid a smile behind her hand. Well, she's certainly an ice queen now. Yang cackled. Up top, kitty cat. I'll tell you about that guy sometime. As to the how, just control your breathing. As they high-fived, Naruto snatched Weiss's hand up again, and pressed a pressure point below her index finger. Chakra tends to flare when you get worked up, and yours is more volatile than most. Here, a flash of light pulsed across the room, accompanied by a faint feeling of static in the air, and heat reasserted itself once more. I've siphoned off the worst of it. Shouldn't build back up like that again for a while. Weiss rubbed her fingers, watching in quiet confusion as the ice crumbled away. Yang scratched at her collarbone. Strange. She'd felt something just now, like a shiver passing through her. Ruby whistled innocently. So, sister's big surprise. Who knew? Weiss rounded on her. You knew, didn't you? Her grin all teeth. Maybe. Yang palmed her face. It all made sense now. Her baby sister had been grinning for days now. Small wonder Weiss was so irritated with her. Still, that solved the mystery that had been plaguing them. Everything was good now. Family ties aside, they could go back to begin with their hearts at ease. So why did she have the feeling this wasn't over? Come along, dear. Willow took Weiss by the hand and tugged her upstairs. Let's give your father some space while he wraps things up. I refuse to believe this. She let herself be dragged, all but spitting every step of the way. He is not my father. I'm barely certain a DNA test will prove otherwise. Weiss whined, and they soon lost the rest of their words as she stepped up the steps. Yang shook her head. You've got a messed up life, old man. His shoulders slumped. I wonder whose fault that is. Summer immediately pinched his cheek for it. Ow! He laughed. I wasn't talking about you. Oh, it sounded like you were. Their eyes met, and Yang felt something shifted in her as the duo began to squabble anew. Her frown deepened as she'd met him before, and there hadn't been any reaction then. But when he'd used his, what had he called it just now? Chakra? She felt a twinge twist in her chest. Could he be? No, there was just no way. The chances were so astronomical. He hadn't even known about Ruby until recently, and yet, if it was possible, if there was even a chance, nah, miracles didn't happen. She wasn't that lucky. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides, nails biting into her palms. For a fleeting moment, her semblance slipped out of her grasp, and her eyes flashed scarlet. Ruby noticed somehow because she ran it on her. So did Naruto. His gaze snapped to her in a heartbeat. In a little flash of golden light, he appeared before her. Fast. He moved quick for an old guy. Yang jolted back, but it was too late. A hand snared her wrist, not to disarm her, only to touch her wrist and keep her from retreating. 10 fingers ran down the length of it, seeking a vein in her arm. He tugged her closer and hunkered over, forehead touching hers. His eyes bored into hers, a fierce and startling red. Just like her own, it was like looking into a mirror. Do that again, he growled. Do what? Yang met him glare for glare. I don't even know what I did. His right hand fitted out to join the left, cradling her wrist to find China. Let me see. His eyes closed, and when they opened once more, they had returned to the true blue. Yang almost wished they hadn't, because his eyes pulsed, lit within by tongues of a sure flame. A tether of ethereal cerulean light shot forth from his fingers and laced into her arm. Almost immediately, she felt something stir in her chest, a force deep inside her respond to that pale tether of pale radiance, and her heart skipped a beat, like an old key turning in a rusty lock, opening a door she hadn't even known was there, and she heard a voice. Huh, so that's where a piece of me went. With those words, Yang's semblance ripped itself out of her grasp. Her eyes, already red, glowed, and her hair burst into flame. This time the fire didn't stop there. It threaded its way down her arms, around her legs, bathing her in a golden inferno. And yet it didn't hurt. She bogged at her pale sun-kissed palms and watched the embers dance over her fingertips. Glowing, she was glowing. Her entire body stood bathed in this. What was it? A cloak or something? What was she? Why was she on fire? Home. The fire seemed to sing in Yang's mind. Home, home, home. Summer blinked. Ruby's hands flew to her mouth. Naruto seemed to be of a like mind because his eyes absolutely bulged. That's impossible. He let her go, and the fire jutted out. First Ruby, now you. How many kids did I miss? Blake quirked about. Is that a rhetorical question, or not now, you? Naruto shook his head. Did I cook a dead man? Now, no, I couldn't have. Could I? He took his head between his hands and shook it from side to side. Wait, hold on a second. He whirled. I knew about Ruby and Weiss at least. And I have so many questions, said Schnee, hollered behind a door upstairs. Later, princess, how the hell did this happen? Ruby raised a hand. What does cook mean? No. Yang instinctively clamped a hand over her sister's mouth. We are not doing this right now. Don't bite me. She withdrew with a grasp as Ruby growled. When had her little sister gotten this fierce? Unbelievable. Summer swore over them both. I know, the two of you never... We didn't. He rounded on her before she could tweak his cheek, then paused. Although... Summer's face went thunderous. What do you mean, although? It's just... You know. Naruto coughed into his fist and made a point of looking away. There was that time in back, yo. Remember the vacation? The 5 of us, we all got really drunk and woke up in shh. Now it was Summer's turn to clamp a hand over his mouth. His face was redder than her namesake. We swore never to speak of that. What happens in Bakuo stays in Bakuo. I'm not talking about it. He flung his arms at her. I barely remember any of it. Yang's head was spinning. She couldn't make heads or tails of this. Any of it. She between them, baffled. Mom, Summer couldn't meet her eyes. In the end, Naruto did. Well, this is all kinds of awkward. He took his hand from her arm and knelt down before her. Guess I should explain some things before it has a chance to fester. I knew your mother once, before. He didn't miss her once. She was a coward and I kept trying to make her more than that. I taught her a few tricks, how to fight and hide like a shinobi. For a moment he seemed terribly old beyond his years and looked away with quiet calm. That was the mistake, obviously. But how? Summer made angry summer noises. In the end, it fell to Naruto to explain. A vacation for Team Stark and me, and a lot of alcohol. Come to think of it, it was around that time Raven got pregnant. His gaze snapped to hers, and something hit Yang. His eyes were blue, Raven's were red, scarlet plus sapphire made violet, or in her case, lilac. He patted her head. I always assumed you were ties. Apparently the sage said otherwise. Her world began to crumble. You mean you two didn't even love each other? His face twisted in a wince. No, I'm sorry. By the end, we hated each other. If I ever see her again, I'm breaking her legs. Question. Ruby, bless her, saved her by raising a hand. The heck's a sage? Someone who's laughing their ass off right now. Naruto's dad's smile grew decidedly strained, and someone I intend to throttle when I finally reach the afterlife. So, his arm snapped up and he craned a weathered eye to the ceiling. Any more questions? If so, now's the time to ask. Blake, who had scarcely spoke a word the entire time, finally raised her hand. Yang saw it and shook her head. Stubborn kitty didn't listen. You still haven't told you how you know my mother's name? Yang flung up her arms. Blake, seriously? Summer's fist demolished a shelf. Right. Naruto's shoulders sagged. Hand now. Blake drew back. I don't think that's a good idea. Her words peaked into a shriek as Ruby planted both hands between her shoulders and gave her a good hard shove. Bereft of balance, Blake stumbled forward with a squeak. Naruto caught by the left wrist and placed 2 fingers by the vein there. That eerie tether of blue light chakra flashed out again, and the normal stoic girl jerked back with a hiss. Yang didn't miss the way the shadows played over Blake's hand, almost as if they were alive. That definitely wasn't her semblance. She used clones. And so did Naruto. Oh gods, Blake must have realized too, because her eyes narrowed to golden slits. What did you just do? He ripped the ribbon from her head. Aha, I knew it. Your fondness. Hey, it was a testament to Naruto's shock that he was able to break his grip at all. He stumbled back, face gone ashen. Ruby did a little dance of joy. Her too? Naruto retreated half a step, face gone ashen. This is not my day. Your mother was supposed to marry Gira. They were fine when I left. Blake blinked balefully. The only Gira I know married Siana Khan. They lead the White Fang. She clamped both hands over her mouth. Too late. Naruto's gaze locked onto her. Somehow he read her like a book with little more than a glance. Everyone heard a molar crack in the back of his jaw. Is that so? Naruto's smile was decidedly strained. I see. So my daughter's an ex-terrorist? He nodded a little too vigorously, so much so that Yang found herself shrinking back from the intensity of his gaze. Seems I might have to pay Menagerie a visit. A naughty cat's been lying to me. Summer busted around him and took Blake by the chin. Don't mind him, he's just a bit broken right now. Let me have a look at you. Yang craned her neck around the duo just in time to hear Naruto laugh into his hand. It wasn't a terribly loud sound, more the chuckle of someone who knew he was screwed. He palmed his face and shook his head. His eyes really did go red when he was angry. Another similarity they shared among themselves. Ruby slammed into her. Yang, not now, Rubes. Yes, now. Her sister rounded on her and grabbed her hands. Do you know what this means? Her lips pursed. That dad was an ass and slept around. Oi, not recalled. I did not. It's complicated. Summer scowled at the floor. More than you know. There's a story to be told there. Later, Ruby latched onto her shoulders and gave her a shake. Yang, listen, don't you get it? Another shake followed the first, hard to do when you were short, but she made a fair attempt. Her silver eyes practically showed. This means we're really real sisters now. Yang's mind ground to a halt, half-sisters technically, but the point stood. That was rather enticing. A small part of her had always chafed at it, the ugly knowledge that for all Summer's efforts, they weren't really family. Not by blood, the idea that they could be, that it was possible. Bullshit like that. Like it an awful lot, really. But still, this was a bit much to take in. Naruto must have noticed because his shoulders slumped. Look, I get it. This is a lot to take in. Don't have to call me dad or anything. He temporized with a raised hand. I've missed nearly 18 years of your life. I understand if you want nothing to do with me. That hand rose to scratch at the back of his head as he looked away. Ruby and Weiss are one thing, but I don't have any right to call you my daughter. His hand flitted over to Blake. You too, Missy. I didn't know about either of you. Maybe that's my fault. All I snapped to Summer. I drove you away. She stepped up beside him. Wouldn't even let you come by. It's my burden to bear too, and it's mine for not realizing sooner. Naruto snapped back. I mean, really, if I just bothered to actually check, and if I hadn't pushed you away the first time, none of this would have happened. Summer, stop blaming yourself. It was the same determination that finally set Yang off once and for all. He was so willing to accept her when Raven had practically tossed her in the trash days after giving birth, and yet this complete stranger was willing to accept her wholeheartedly based on a maybe. It was too much. Her eyes began to sting. She sank her teeth into her lower lip to stifle a sob. It didn't work. Naruto started and reached out for her. Yang, where were you? She punched him, hard as she could. Naruto didn't even try to dodge. His head snapped back, riding the blow with the practiced ease of a brawler. His feet didn't move. There wasn't even any blood. It felt like punching a brick wall. All this time, Yang hit him again. He didn't say a word. He just took it and let her vent. Why? Her eyes blurred with tears, and her third punch went wide. She slapped at his chest instead, each blow growing weaker than the last. All right. He tilted his head, wiping a small scuff mark from the corner of his mouth. I deserved that. He looked so sad. It made her want to weep. She wasn't sure why, from joy or fear. But tears stung her all the same, because he was here. He was right here, looking just as baffled and terrified as she was. There wasn't a hint of anger or regret in his eyes. Guilt, hell of a lot of that maybe, but not anger and certainly not disappointment. What did that mean? Look, Naruto smacked his lips. I'll be the first to admit, Raven and I didn't see eye to eye on much of anything, really. But I swear, he knelt down before her, reached out and took her hand in his. If I'd known, if I'd suspected for even a sliver of a second that you were mine, I would have been there every day. His hand squeezed hers. Every damn day, if you'll let me. I'll do my best to make up for all of them. Each word hit Yang like a punch to the gut. She physically shook where she stood. Just like that. He nodded once. Just like that. You too, Blake. He flicked a glance towards the sullen Faunus, who had been edging towards the door when no one was looking. Just stay right there, young lady. Summer's body blocked her when she tried to bolt. You and I are going to have a long talk once I'm done here. I just don't get you. Yang stomped a foot, shattering a portion of the tiled floor underfoot. You don't even know me, yet you're ready to just throw your life away for my sake. Yep. Naruto looked back to her without an iota of hesitation, because that's what family does. Whether they're for another, through the good and the bad. Yang snuck in a breath so sharp it actually hurt her throat. Don't say that. You don't get to say that. In the background, Ruby finally lost her patience. Come on, Yang, say yes. She sniffled once instead. Shitty old man. Naruto quirked a brow. Language. It was the last straw. Yang hiccuped. It wasn't his words, not his promise, or even the way he said them. Just that little bit of parental displeasure that sent her thoughts hurtling over the edge. It was such a dad thing to say, something she'd secretly longed to hear, yet hadn't. Never in her life had she needed something so much and never known until she received it. Summer gave her back a tiny nudge. Go on, he won't bite. Yang tried to hold her tears in. She really did. Damn it. She was a big girl. She wasn't going to break down like some. She warbled once and broke. Strong arms closed around her. This time she didn't push them away, and now the consequences of my actions came back to bite me. Naruto sighed. Anyone else want a hug? Ruby needed no further prodding than that. She squirmed her way into the side of their embrace. Yes, please. Yang felt Summer's arms and folded them from behind, and that was it. Any chance she had of controlling herself went up in smoke. The waterworks wouldn't stop. Naruto's gaze met Blake's over her shoulder. You want in on this too? The fauna shook her head rapidly and tried to back away. Too late. She just wasn't quick enough. A golden arm burst forth from Naruto's back, caught her, and reeled her like the fish she so favored. Get over here. Are we all really related? How? Weiss was in a proper rage once they got back to Beacon. Ruby didn't care. No, wait, maybe she did, but she was too excited to let it bother her. She giggled like a look and toppled back onto her bunk bed, legs kicking gleefully. She couldn't help but smile as her head hit the pillow. Big families were best families. There was no way this week could get any better. It just couldn't get any better. How little she knew. Naruto turned a baleful look towards the vaunted ceiling of his shop. They're gone now. He spoke to the ceiling. Come on out. You can stop hiding. A merry cackle echoed from the rafters above. Must I? But it's so comfortable up here. The blonde pinched the bridge of his nose. How long have you been up there? The silence was telling. Tyrion. Well, that jolly voice sang from the rafters. Look who the fox dragged in. Kurama yawned. This fox is about to squish a scorpion if he doesn't tell me why he's here. What do you want, Tyrion? How cruel. The grinning faunus vaulted down from the second floor and landed behind him. Can I not check in on an old friend or two? Naruto pursed his lips. I don't recall us being friends. Associates, fellow killers, slayers of monsters and men? Sure, but friends? Don't be so cold. An arm looped around his shoulder, drawing him close. We used to wreak such havoc together, you and I. Don't you remember? He swung an arm up towards the ceiling with a grandiose laugh. And now look at you, living the dream. Kurama snorted. Those were the days. Naruto shook himself free and walked away. Those days are done. Are they? Tyrion called at his back. I hear a certain candlewick has you rather hot under the collar. Naruto paused. Torchwick, he corrected, and then he realized he jumped on it. What do you know? His smile was sinister. Now, my knowledge comes with a price. Figured he was making a deal with the devil. He just knew it. And yet, name it. These children of yours, his older partner rubbed his hands together. I'd like to meet them properly. I've never been an uncle. Naruto pinched his nose, feeling a migraine coming on. Tyrion, no, out of the question. Tyrion, yes. If they're anything like you, we'll get along swimmingly. They're not killers, not like us. Not yet, he tittered. Nothing like a little push can solve. Ow! Not the tail. All right, I'll talk. Previews. You have a son too, huh? Naruto hummed. Kyojoro's kicking around. Is he? Good boy, that one. Think he goes by Rengoku these days. Ruby tilted her head. I have a big brother. You do indeed. He's quite the swordsman. Sadly, his mother's not around anymore. A young man with striking red blonde hair slammed his bowl down. Delicious! Yeah, you already said that. Hello, nieces. Team Ruby screamed. Well, most of them. Huh? Ruby looked up, legs still crossed beneath them. Another uncle. Neat. Tyrion beamed. And just like that, I have a new favorite. Somewhere, miles away in a distant settlement, Crow sneezed. I sensed a disturbance in the force. He gripped Harbinger's hilt behind his back and glared into the wilderness. There can only be one. No, Cinder flung up her arms. You must be joking. That fool is not my uncle. I refuse to accept it. Callie blinked. Had someone left a voicemail on her scroll? On a whim, she plucked it off the table and listened to it. Callie! A low, drawling snarl filled her ear. Our daughters run away to Beacon. Be a dear and visit her, won't you? Wait, oops, he knew, didn't he? Drink your tea, dear. Why scowled. I still don't like this. No. Willow crossed one leg over the other. I dare say he's a sore sight better than Jackus. Your sister already knows. Oh, Winter does. What about Whitley? The silence was telling. Mother, what would you have me do? Go back to that sniveling weasel? That door is closed. Well, no, but you'd best get to know him. I suspect he'll have a test by the end of the week to prove it. And what a jackets. Willow's smile was all teeth. Oh, don't worry. That's been taken care of. I'll agree. On one condition, Raven has no place here. Don't have to tell me twice. Naruto took a long drink from his glass. If I ever see her again, I'm breaking her legs, her spine, her everything. That's adorable. Roman smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Neil prayed her dum-dum would live to see another sunrise. That's my baby girl. Don't touch her. You call that overkill? No. This is overkill. They never learn. There was no warning. One moment, Naruto stood well across the clearing, and the next, he was before the Grim, his fist slammed forward. It didn't simply pierce the beast's torso, because his opponent's entire upper body ceased to be. There weren't even any remains. They atomized on contact with the air. Yang lowered a trembling arm as she climbed to her feet. Holy shit! I want that! Do you? Naruto lowered a smoldering fist. It's not easy to learn. End of chapter 8.